Jason Lewis, and I'm the curator of an exhibition here at the Hudson Park Library titled Luster of Light. And it's a group show, and there's 4 artists in the show. There's Sato Yamamoto, there's Kirsten Flaherty, Bruno, Nadalin, and Anita, Rundles. And so today we're just going to have a conversation and talk about what the work was about and the different printing techniques such as Ukiyo, mezzotint, intaglio, and some of the other printmaking, paper-making processes that are in the show. So I guess first thing I'll do is I'll introduce Kirsten and have her talk about it real quick and say hi.
Hi, I'm Kirsten. I am a printmaker mainly, and I also am a working artist. I have worked at various printmaking galleries across the city for the past 10 years. The works I have in the show are all mezzotints, which is the technique that I usually focus on in print. And I guess just to give a brief introduction about mezzotint, it's a 17th century technique that was developed to kind of be a cheaper way to create like portraiture and landscape art, and because it still gets a beautiful like subtle tones and gradations and a really deep dark black that you can't really get in any other form of printmaking. So it was originally developed again as like portrait art for kind of like the upper class and a way to distribute these pieces of artwork in a medium that was a little bit more affordable to the general public. So I kind of took that idea and wanted to do portraits of dogs and mainly pit bulls to kind of accentuate, like kind of go against the general aesthetic of a pit bull being violent and cruel, and kind of like fight against that idea. General overview.
And then let me introduce Sato Yamamoto, and maybe she can give a quick overview of the works that are in the show.
Hi, thank you very much to stop by. My name is Sato Yamamoto from Japan, and stay in United States around 10 years. And my display art is most of them the wood block, and some of them using the press, and others by the hand print. So actually, why hand print? Some people ask, but my experience of pandemic, very people sheltered, and it's hard to access studio. So when my tiny apartment, I'm thinking what kind of technique should be okay, make a edition of 2020 year or 2021st. So I realized, I should hand print everything. So the first time I used like a spoon of kitchen spoon to make a hand print a little bit, and just now I'm using the company Speedball's barren is my favorite. But in behind of the story, a little bit had exhausted day of, so that's funny, nobody remember anymore, but my face picture was cheated and some strange Pornhub put my face picture, and that bad rumor spread just a community. And when I visited the print studio, some strange rumor spread, and it was hard to make print. It was talking before pandemic, nobody remember anymore, and some student already go out of country, I think. So that time, I really realized art space is very hard to have because New York is everywhere expensive, and small community, everybody life across each other. So I'm always ready for the emergency, make art, even nothing studio or not. So that's my experience, and I'm also display the wood block plate there, and this is also available press and the barren, both of them, if you see it later.
So let me just ask about each of your backgrounds. So Kirsten, let's start with you real quick. Mm-hmm. So how did you get into art, and what was your background to begin working here in New York?
Yeah, so in high school I always I was always, the loner kid drawing, I guess it's kind kind of a cliche, but I ended up going to art school because that was the one thing I was passionate about, that I enjoyed. I also really hated math, so I just wanted to go to art school and try to focus on, getting a career in art. And I ended up doing a lot of internships throughout, I think it was like my second or third year of college was when I was introduced to our professor, Bruce Waldman, who kind of inspired me to really go after printmaking, and I ended up getting a bunch of jobs in the printmaking world, and have kind of just been I worked at the Penn Graphic Center, IPCNY, which we were just talking about, IFPDA, and I just have kind of been in and around the print world for the past 10 years, as I said. So it's been a really nice small community in New York that really encourages each other. As Sato was saying, you really are around a lot of artists all the time in the print shop. So that was also kind of inspiring and encouraging to keep going in print rather than painting or drawing or anything like that.
Well, originally when I came to New York, the reason I came to New York myself was because I got an apprenticeship at Universal Limited Art Editions. And that brought me from Oklahoma to New York, and that's how I became interested in prints.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, and Sato, can you tell us about what has your transition been, and how did you get interested in making prints from being in Japan and then maybe coming to New York?
So in the past, I'm a very drawing as a general Asian girl, I think, and I come here like also general American love person from other country, and studied a little bit by the School of Visual Art continuing education class. This is my very first running of printmaking, and so many faculty, everybody so sweet, even my English was awkward, and Kirsten was my past boss when I had an internship. I was so strange, nothing to speak and just works, but she never gave me stranger, very sweet, and step by step finally talk with her in English.
You were very helpful.
I tried. So this is finally, I name myself as a New York artist now.
Kirsten, how did you first get interested in art? Did you have family members? Did you have friends? What was it?
Actually, I haven't thought about that in a while. My dad, as a patent lawyer, used to actually have to draw patents. So I think maybe I developed the skill from watching him sometimes working on that. And I guess he kind of encouraged me in a way of, my family life at home was not always the best, so art kind of helped me through childhood and getting through some hard times. But I think art was just kind of the one thing in school that I actually gravitated towards. And again, the community in high school was always very encouraging, and after school programs and drawing and art kind of helped me focus on something. So I guess that was how I first got interested. Yeah.
How about you, Sato? What got you first interested in art?
My family is so many people work at financial company or very conservative, but my granddad studied the watercolor, the art student league. It was before World War II, I think. So that time, some of my family coming back from US to Japan, I think, but terrible big matter. Nobody know anymore that something war, and my family lose everything. So afterward, the granddad gave me lecture, the drawing when I childhood. So he asked me draw hand first. It was my first art education by the granddad.
So what about now? Kirsten, we'll go back to you. What about inspiration? How did you start working on the pit bulls, and where did that sort of focus come from?
Yeah, I guess, so I have a pit bull who's 12 years old. His name's Otis, as probably most of you guys know. I think I was wanting to do something for, specifically the pit bull breed, to kind of counteract the stigma against the breed, and just kind of show what kind of loving animals they are, and especially Otis is kind of he's basically like saved my life in more ways than one, so I kind of also wanted to do like a series dedicated to him since he's such a sweet best friend. Yeah. Yeah.
So Sato, you've been, in this show specifically, you have two separate bodies of work in some ways where you have wood blocks of the Brooklyn Bridge, so you're interested in bridges, I know. You've been doing some handmade pieces, but then you also have the 100 poems by 100 poets that you use as the drawings that you translated for the kimono origami. So how did those two ideas come about?
Oh, the bridges, I'm displaying two of them. It's like about a sample of the auto block technique. I thought it's how many color adding, and you can make different editions whichever you like. And also bridge is my symbolism across countries. That's my thing. So even so many words, but I'd like to be the part of friendly, diplomatic as possible. That's my thought.
So is the bridge from like coming from Japan to New York, or is it coming from being something else to being an artist, or how do you see the bridge as a metaphor?
English is difficult.
That's okay. Go ahead and talk about it. We'll talk about the origami.
Anyway, origami is my original translation of Ogura Hyakuninisshue, is a Japanese very traditional poem. It's like a love story poem, and also some emperor family or privileged family afraid rumor of love and writing their feeling inside of a poem. And so human behavior never change, even different nationality. Every word is just almost similar. So that's my feeling when I had a very stress or lots of pandemic thing, and I decided to make origami and put my feeling of the letter.
Very nice. Kirsten, how is your studio practice? How do you make time for going to the printing departments? Do you do things at home? How is your studio practice going?
Yeah, I haven't been able to put as much time in it lately as I would like to, but before COVID and the lockdowns, I did have my own studio that I split with a couple really amazing artists. I had my own etching press, so that really helped me focus and get in there. A lot of these prints too, every time I sell one, I make sure to donate half the proceeds to an animal shelter and all that, so that kind of helps me push forward to keep doing them, so I can feel a somewhat purpose that I'm doing good in the world or whatever. But it is definitely hard since I am working full time. I actually kind of work 5 to 6 days a week these days. So it's just that extra drive, I guess, to push instead of going out at night when you get home, just sitting home and drawing, and that's basically what I did last night. So trying, but it's a hard balance.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
Sato, how about you? What's your studio practice right now? When you're going out and printing, and where are you making prints at right now?
So I'm very lucky to have a print space at the organization Manhattan Graphic Center. I finally very have a many activity with them. So I'm signed up for the membership to make a print, and also I'm a baby instructor there about auto block. So that's my space to make a print.
And what about in New Jersey with Bruno?
Yes, and Bruno is actually my friend, also the Manhattan Graphic Center, and he sometimes welcomed me to make a print at the Jersey City, his studio. So.
And Bruno's, I think it's called the JC Print Room.
Yes.
And so he has his own studio in Jersey City, and that's where he's making prints at. And it's a building that has lots of artist studios in it, and then he has classes himself. So usually he's using etching is the main thing that he's doing right now in Taglio. But he has many types of classes, and I think you are also doing a class there in
Yes.
the next month or so, right?
Yes,
You'll be
yes.
teaching, is it a woodblock
I
class?
also have the instructor activity there.
Yeah.
I'm like a freelancer, find a job anywhere. And also Anita as my boss when I work at the school Fashion Institute of Technology. She has a very, very talented faculty at the illustration department. So when I work there and sometime 3 hour, I practice drawing during her class. So every artwork connect each other, I think.
The New York art world is a small place in some ways. So Kirsten, are you, besides just working, are you curating shows? Are you putting other things together? You have lots of other activities, I know that.
Yeah.
Right? So you seem to be very, very busy.
Well, I try to keep busy. Yeah, I mean, as far as curatorial projects, like I try to do one fundraiser a year, which like Sato's been involved with, Robin, which is I've recently with COVID I've put a lot of these fundraisers online, but they're just kind of like art fundraisers where artists will donate their prints or paintings or drawings, but prints are obviously the easiest to part with for a lot of artists. And then it's just fundraising for a certain type of cause. Like during the pandemic, we were raising money for like PPE materials for hospitals, and then we've done something for like Vocal New York, who does a lot of outreach for you know, the houseless and just people in need around our community. We've done like Animal Shelter Foundation, so trying to keep like at least one of those fundraisers going a year. But yeah, you know, balancing that with work and everything else. I don't know, we'll see.
Very busy.
Yeah.
Very busy. It's good. Sato, you've been also doing origami workshops. And,
Yes.
so when's the next one, or how frequently does that happen?
So I actually very appreciate the public library become official volunteer at the workshop overnight. So next one is June 21st at the Battery City Park Library, and sometime I have a workshop here at the Hudson Park, depends. And others is so World Trail Centers place, Brookfield Place is a name. So I'm gonna have origami workshop July 8th. And others is a woodblock workshop, Manhattan Graphic Center is June 17-18. And the Poster House is a museum appreciated experience by them. So I'm going to have a linocut printmaking class as their first Friday of July 7th. And we expect more others with them.
Kirsten, tell us some of the artists that inspired you. It's like when
Yeah.
you're throughout art history or contemporary or working now, or
Yeah.
what are the people that you kind of look to when you're
Yeah.
making work?
I think my favorite ultimate artist would be Suko, since she does so much work with animal rights and like you know, human hardship, and she also is mainly a printmaker, so it's fun to, well, not fun, but it's her subject matter is generally pretty dark, but she is also such a talented artist that she renders these scenes in like such a beautiful way where you feel really heartfelt for the subjects, and it kind of like, I feel like moves you to do something about these topics that she creates her work about. So she's definitely like my favorite artist. I mean, any of the German expressionists, but I guess right now I also tend to get influenced by the works we have in my job at Pace Prints. So like, you know, Pat Steer, Helen Frankenthaler, I get to, you know, work around these like pretty amazing prints all day, so they kind of filter into my taste as well, I guess.
But definitely women artists.
That's a fine point, yeah. I guess I did just say all women artists. Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It totally makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about Sato? How about artists that inspire you?
So very general talk, I very respect the Hokusai. Sorry, very general talk, but that generation not so much facility and very limited tool, and he made a very totally perfect art, and still very mystery, I feel. That's my beginning of my autoblock practice. And also my friend artist Lina Peruta is, I'm sorry to say friend, but she's a very, huge heart to speak with me when I'm a baby artist. Very inspired her art, so many story include, and other artists, Esperanza.
Yes.
Very respect her huge heart too, and very gorgeous art.
Yeah, definitely. So, also, Kirsten, tell me like a couple, or maybe just one, amazing, memorable things that have happened to you in the art world here in New York. Something very surprising, or something that's kind of happened that you're, you just can't quite.
Yeah.
You always think about it.
I guess this would go back to when I first met Suko. It was at a conference. It wasn't in New York, but it was at the SGCI conference, and I don't remember where. This was over 5 years ago, but I remember she was the keynote speaker, so she was there doing a presentation, and I had gotten to speak with her briefly, and I remember showing her, because my forearm tattoo is off of one of her etchings actually, and I showed her, and her reaction was so sweet that we ended up having a conversation, and she was she saw my prints, she saw the mezzotint of Otis, and she was so genuine and kind with her review of my work, and she was like, well, I really want to stay in touch. And so I swapped information with her, and I was like, she's never gonna, it's fine, she's just being nice. And then a week later, or a couple weeks later, after we're all home from the conference, I got in the mail a package, and it was an etching, the etching that I had tattooed on me. So she was that sweet to remember this, make an effort to send me this etching. I was just totally amazed that someone that was that successful can be so kind and grateful to people that love her work. And we're actually still in touch today. It's pretty amazing. I was pretty impressed by that. Yeah.
Sato, tell me a memorable moment that's happened to you here in the art world in New York. Or I know you've had lots of moments, I'm sure, from the very beginning, but tell us something about something that's happened.
So if I have a memory, may I talk a memory with Kirsten?
Yes.
So everybody sheltered the 2020 spring. Nobody forgets. I think that time I feel very isolated, and suddenly received her email, and she make a project of the fundraising for the hospital.
Yeah, it was the PPE materials for the hospital.
Yes,
assistance and all that.
Yeah, it was a very memory. So even panic moment, she think of the running mind and everything. So I immediately raised a hand and attend with my autograph.
Kirsten, how do you think your work has changed over the years? What has sort of affected the different stages of different things you've gone through?
I think when I was younger, I used to be more I used to be less subtle in my artwork and trying to find a way to, I tried to develop my work in a way that you could still say something impactful, but not be so in your face about things. So I think that's also another reason why I started doing the dog portraits. I guess as far as media, I've done so many prints over the years that the mezzotint especially ends up taking so long, these plates just to prepare before you start, burnishing the image into them. They can take up to 15 hours a plate to just prepare and darken to that black tone. So unfortunately I've been moving a little bit away from mezzotint just because I don't necessarily have the time anymore to prepare the plates, even though I love the process more than anything. I think as far as media-wise, I've been more drawing these days and all that, been trying to, again, focus on re-envisioning subject matter, but still figuring it out, I think.
Sato, how do you think your work has changed over the last couple of years?
So many changing. I do like to say I'm growing, but I don't know which way should be nice. And the block is most my favorite. It's never changed anything, but I'm preparing other technique of embossing the print. It's next to my challenge, and I hope to publish someday. Hopefully soon, I guess.
So, Kirsten, you spoke about drawing and such. So, how important is drawing to the process of making your work?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably like the key aspect to it. I've always been like more attracted to like a hyperrealism type. I haven't, maybe that's just like the anxiety in me or the OCD in me that really gravitates towards the realistic kind of line work. But I mean, yeah, I've never really done anything that's like abstract or minimalism or anything like that. So it's pretty focused on like fine line work and yeah, seeing how detailed I can make something.
Sato, what about you? Using drawings, how does drawing change your work and inspire your work?
So I am sometimes figure drawing and sometimes like architect drawing, because nobody know my background major was architecture. Nobody know anymore. So that's, I like drawing a building, and in the future like more building drawing art or some figure drawing is nice, but a little bit emphasize the minimalized community. I mean, I don't know how to say, but it's easier.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
maybe, do you have anything?
Kirsten, do you have any questions? Do you have anything? Does anybody have any questions?
Sure.
Go for it.
Well, I'm actually curious about what the mezzotint process is. If you could sort of, well, I know everyone else might. I'm just curious. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I did actually like. I once did a plate in different stages of mezzotint, so I did actually bring those pieces of paper. I could show you after we're done, but like it does, so it's a copper plate and you use this tooth tool called a rocker, and you're basically grinding into the plate over and over again in little rows in different directions. It's kind of hard to visualize, but that plate, before you go back in with burnishers and scrapers, the plate while you prepare it is going to be totally black. And then you use burnishers and scrapers to kind of pull out all the gray and white tones. So you're kind of working backwards, and it's a long process, and not too many
the
people
stuff
do
that
it.
is black will print black, or is it the opposite of that?
I wish I had a plate to show.
Okay,
So it's like, so you're building all these little ridges into the copper plate, and then you're using a scraper to kind of like fold them over and like burnish them down. So I guess on the plate, the shiniest parts are going to print like the whitest, you know, but like the most ground down parts are like where the ink is held to be like the deepest black in the plate, if that makes sense. But
Interesting, yeah. And then my other question for you, and the same one for Sato, is do you work from photos, or and what is that process like? And I'm curious what your process is as far as what your reference is. Do you work from drawings, that kind of stuff? So.
I mean, I definitely work from photos. Like these are all photos with my dog, so it's easy for me. I have a reference that lives with me.
Yes, okay.
But yeah, usually, and even if I'm drawing otherwise, I'll like just use a bunch of different kind of photos. I'm not very good at being imaginative with my process, so I use photo reference for everything. But what do you?
I actually have some reference picture, but I don't make it perfectly. Always put together with my imaginary illustration. And New York is a very international place. Some people just visit or came from others. So I'd like to share inspiring many people, even if from others. So at Yoshiwara or Brooklyn Bridge, title is already specific, but if looking at them and that's my neighborhood, or if somebody inspired, I just expect. So I like not perfect art. It's my favorite art. Thank you very much.
The one thing I haven't done yet is I want to thank the Hudson Park Library. Emil Alekberdov is the main person that we've been dealing with, and he's been amazing. And then Miranda Murray is the other person. But really, Emil has been the person that is our point person that has helped us, and he puts all the events on here at the library. And we just want to thank him so much. So this is the second time that Sato is actually shown here, using this space physically, and then she's been online, and then she's done multiple origami workshops, and then now she's going to be doing basically a couple other projects that they've asked her to be art projects that will be here at the gallery also. So. Anyway, that's about it. I mean,
Yeah.
Just one last thing about the show was like, the original genesis was that it was sort of like a portraiture and landscape show, and so the work in the show sort of, it was really Sato's like baby in some ways, and I came in to kind of help organize a little bit, but very proud of the show, and we're just excited that we have an amazing opening, and thank you everyone for coming, and we appreciate it. And Kirsten, thank you for coming.
Thank you guys for including me.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
so-
It looks great.